This is the Ecommerce Braintrust, a podcast about building momentum online for established consumer brands. Join our hosts and their expert guests for high-level conversations about e-commerce strategies, trends, and innovations. Access our Braintrust and boost your brand's e-commerce potential.
Welcome to the Ecommerce Braintrust podcast. I'm Jordan Ripley, Director of Retail Operations at Acadia, and I'll be sitting in today for Julie Spear. We're joined by a couple of experts that will be sifting through the results of this year's Prime Big Deal Days. So we have Logan Nielsen, who's an account manager here at Acadia. He's also our resident Prime Day hype man, where the Slack channels are just buzzing with Logan's energy. So looking forward to bringing that to today's call. And then we have Zach Christensen from Analytic Index, who's Acadia's category and search analytics data partner. We've worked with Analytic Index for years, and we love those guys. So we're very, very excited to have Zach on the call today. Together, we're going to be diving in on key trends data. We're only about 36 hours after Prime Big Deal Days has ended, so data is just starting to settle. That said, not too early to get some hot takes from Logan and Zach. So with that, welcome Logan, welcome Zach.
Hey Jordan, what's going on?
It's good. Thanks for coming on, Zach. Appreciate the time.
It's great to be here. Excited to talk about Prime Big Deal Days.
Yeah. I feel like we have to establish what we're going to call this thing from the start between Fall Prime Day, October Prime Day, Turkey Day, whatever we're calling it. We'll try to stick to Prime Big Deal Day, but if it morphs to a different event name throughout this podcast, we'll have our continuity team take a look at it.
My default is always to call it Prime Day 2, which is, I'm sure, Amazon's least favorite option.
Yeah. I like the idea of doing a sort of like nonsensical sequel title like Prime Day Ghost Protocol or sort of just tacking something that makes no sense on the end of it. But so Prime Day 2, yeah, Prime Big Deal Day, whatever it is. I'm just curious, both of you are living in the world of the industry, seeing what's playing out with clients, seeing what's playing out in the data. But you're also, of course, real humans that live in the world of shopping yourself. So I'd love to get two takes from the both of you. The first is, anecdotally, how do you feel this Big Deal Day felt? Just like, what was the energy around it, the participation, that sort of thing, just from your industry take? And then, did you buy anything for yourself? I'm always interested about that. And Zach, maybe we'll start with you on that.
Yeah, I don't think it quite cracks through the kind of social consciousness in the same way that the summer event does. The summer event really is, they've created a tentpole that there's a lot of energy and attention around. And this one, I think, kind of gets swept up, and we'll talk about how it falls in kind of a pre-turkey event. But I am a fan of the NFL, and I see Amazon's ads on their Thursday night football games and some of the connected video ads and all those sort of things. There's an awareness. It's not like it doesn't exist. If they had wanted it to reach the highs of the summer event, which may or may not be their goal, but if that's what they want, I don't think it's quite gotten there yet.
Yeah, I feel the same way as also a football fan, also an avid Amazon customer. It's like, this is something that's exciting if you're highly connected with the Amazon ecosystem anyways. Like, you'll see the deals flash across, you'll see their media promoting it in all of their own channels. But yeah, agreed, it's not the sort of cultural phenomenon that the summer event does. I noticed you dodged the second part of that question. Did you buy anything for yourself there?
I did not buy anything. I had a couple things that popped up on my radar. I'm low-key shopping for a TV, but the feeling, and I wonder if this is the feeling that casual folks have, is just, is it going to be better in a couple of weeks? Are we actually seeing the bottom of deals? How am I being told to shop? In the summer, it feels like this is going to be a low price. And we'll talk about what we see in the data. There's definitely discounts out there. My feeling as a customer is, if I'm really deal shopping, is this the best time to get the best price?
Yeah. And now you're a single testimonial for whoever's running the brand tailored promotions and remarketing at Sony and et cetera, to really dive in on this.
Hey, if Sony wants to send me a coupon, I'm happy to.
Yeah. Okay. This is that one-to-one marketing that we strive for on this show. Logan, what about yourself? What's your kind of gut take here? What any fancy things that are on your way in Amazon boxes to your house?
Yeah, I'd say for me, it was harder for me to keep up with the trends on the day-to-day. I feel like just my general feeling, like during the July event, up at midnight looking at sales, like looking at our client sales throughout the day. For example, on day one, we see this explosive start. I didn't see that as much from this event. So my overall sentiment, it was hard to track the data until the event settled a little bit. I know you said like we're 36 hours after the event, and I really had to use that time to evaluate performance overall. It was harder for me to read. And I even know for me, talking with friends and family, they didn't even know there was a fall Prime Day, or they're like, oh, Prime Day is in July. I'm like, no, Prime Day is now twice a year. Amazon is looking for new opportunities to commoditize and more than July. And obviously we've had this event a couple times now. As far as what I purchased, I bought more clothes I didn't need. I'm taking some engagement photos tonight, so I had to get suited up correctly. And then a couple tumblers and then some journals.
Okay.
Very stoic purchases this year.
Yeah. That's sort of like man starter pack there. That's nice. Okay, well, perfect. All right, so let's set the anecdotal aside and let's get into actual data we're seeing. Of course, with the usual caveat of, yes, we're very fresh from the event, but still, I think we can start to see some trends emerge here. And Logan, I know you said you've been sifting through it from your side. So maybe we start with you, Logan. After this 36-hour period has passed, you've started to see the data settle. Where does this kind of rank for your clients relative to other tentpole events? What are the sort of like key takeaways? What are you seeing?
Yeah, each year during these tentpole events, whether it's the July or October, the traffic is becoming so competitive on site. So for example, for our clients at Acadia, our advertising related sales grew by 53%, but we had to invest a lot more to unlock that type of gain. Something that worked well for some of the brands I've worked with is leveraging influencers and leveraging external traffic. I feel like for the brands who got a bit more scrappy and creative, they were able to unlock higher growth than what Acadia's average was, which Acadia's average for our clients at least was 41% increase over last year's fall Prime event. But for the brands who unlocked maybe 3-figure growth, if you will, from a percentage perspective, definitely brands who got scrappy with influencers. I know even some of my brands using Meta and redirecting traffic to Amazon. So just getting more creative because the traffic on site is so competitive from the organic side and sponsored.
I mean, two trends there, right? One is basically every tentpole event now we're seeing the ad load has reached a point where CPCs are going to get wild during these times. And that's July Prime Day, that's Fall Prime Day. I think that's a trend that we'll continue to see just because of the natural maturity of competition on Amazon. The leveraging of external traffic, that makes sense to me. I think the other thing that is informing that is like, as Amazon becomes a larger portion of a brand's total channel mix, they're more willing, perhaps begrudgingly, but still willing to start directing inbound traffic to Amazon versus a D2C or other sales channels. And the nice thing I think about fall, this is my perspective anyway, is a Fall Prime Day event not competing as much with like later Q4 where those other sales channels might be our larger priority is Amazon still sits alone. Mostly, I know Best Buy and Target had some deals and things. I still think that this is primarily an Amazon event. I feel like Amazon benefits from a bit of exclusivity channel-wise from a priority standpoint this year around. Zach, what's your take? I mean, you have such a wider lens on this from Analytic Index and looking across categories. From a data standpoint, again, given what you can actually leverage at this point, anything that stands out to you from this event particularly?
Yeah, there are a couple different pieces that we see. I think it's comments about both the event itself, and then I think it's how the event is reflective of the kind of marketplace that Amazon is. And sometimes we see that in the share of sponsorship items that we see. Like if we look across all the site, where do we see the most items? Well, clothing, shoes, and jewelry.
Okay. It worked on Logan, clearly.
I know. Anecdotally, we can connect that out there. I don't think that's where people would say like, oh, there's a lot of energy and attention to clothing on Amazon necessarily. Like, I don't want you to hear that and say like, oh, this was a big clothing event. But I think it's reflective of as Amazon's catalog reaches this kind of maturity point or just continues to kind of grow in volume. I think we see that with there's a lot of clothing on Amazon. There's a lot of home and kitchen. Those elements are reflected in the event itself. So it's not necessarily that we see one category. We'll always see, I think, electronics and toys spike a bit. And we see that a little bit in the data here in terms of where we see some of those sponsorship activities and where we see some of those particular items that had a big swing in their BSR. But we talked about this in our webinar on Prime Day 1.
The prequel.
The grocery space is also one where we see there's a super meaningful quantity of activity. There is year over year, one of the biggest changes in sponsored item count is in grocery. Again, I don't think that's unique to this event or the summer event, I think that's reflective of Amazon is pushing grocery and Amazon is pushing grocery on site. And some of that is site that gets redirected to their local entities, Fresh and Whole Foods and whatnot. It's as much a story of as Amazon and these events kind of continue to kind of plateau in their maturity of what the marketplace is, that's where we begin to tell the story of clothing, home and kitchen, grocery are some of the categories that stand out most meaningfully, although that's not necessarily unique to this, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, it does. And that feels right to me because I also bought apparel on Prime Day. Realized I hung the two of you out to dry by exposing your purchases without offering my own. And I was like, embarrassingly, I have young kids, and so I was shopping for a fanny pack, like keep snacks and things when I'm out. And I'll just admit to that at the start. But it's like those type of purchases, like apparel, grocery, it's like, I'm probably going to buy this in the next handful of weeks anyways. Why not save $10 now? It's not a TV where I'm going to beat myself up if I could have saved $15 3 weeks later. I feel like this sort of event really suits those burgeoning categories well, where before, I would have been like, we have clients in the CPG and grocery space where it's like, this is a $12 consumer staple. Like, who is waiting for the deal to purchase that? And I think people aren't waiting for the deal. They'll purchase that in a regular frequent cycle anyways. So the deal pulls that demand activity forward. And that's where it still seems like a useful thing for Amazon and a useful thing for consumers. Okay. So, I mean, we've got some good highlights here, some good trends that we've seen play out. Seems like on the whole, very positive. The one thing that, of course, we always have to acknowledge is there's this giant surge in demand. Yes, Amazon has been doing this for multiple tentpole events for nearly a decade at this point, but there still seems to be fun day of glitches that we get to encounter. Logan, as someone who's on the tip of the spear with a lot of brands and clients here, anything that comes to mind that sort of caused anxiety this year?
Definitely coming into the event, something that caused some anxiety was what happened in July with the ad console going down. And ultimately, we were flying blind for a period of time. So I think there was some fear of maybe something like that happening again. And this year, during the event, the issues that did happen were from the sponsorship side, more so in relation to sponsored brand. So sponsored brand video and traditional sponsored brand had problems not showing the discount badge. All of us live in the Amazon ecosystem. If you're the end user, you're looking for that Prime Big Deal badge. And if there's a sponsored brand ad not showing that, that was something we caught on to during the event and began to reallocate focus towards sponsored product. I think that's a big mess on the Amazon side. Those highly visual ads are really effective to customers. So I think that's something that does need to be fixed in future events.
Yeah.
This year also, with Prime exclusive discounts, this was the first year of a deal fee. So I think there was some mysterium to how will that affect how they're set up or how they operate. Thankfully, those ran smoothly. We dealt with some general suppressions, nothing outside of the ordinary though. So for this year, all the problems were definitely on the sponsorship side. And that's back-to-back events we've had sponsorship issues. So might be something for Amazon to dig deeper into.
Yeah, I mean, this is purely speculation. I'm not connected with the product managers overseeing sponsored brands, but it does seem like that's the point of breakage where every year there's some adjustment to the merchandise promos at the margins. And for some reason, like a display asset of sponsored brands, like I know this year we also saw instances where the deal badge would show, but the title would drop off entirely. So it's like you saw the deal, but what was this product? Right? So yeah, I feel like there's some wariness always when it comes to sponsored brand ads. Obviously, you still need to be there. It's an important piece of inventory, an important piece of real estate. But in terms of conversion and ROAS, it's a tricky thing to balance. That makes sense. Zach, any weird blips you're seeing in the data? Like, I realize you're looking at this at a higher category level, but anything that challenges from a data standpoint?
No, not necessarily. I think we're seeing pretty consistent as we look at price point and average discount percentage. We're seeing pretty comparable results. I think it'll be curious to see. And when we talk about looking forward, I'm really curious to see a little bit in terms of what the search traffic is, how we model that and talk about that. But in terms of the overall numbers, they're, again, it's fairly consistent with what we've seen before, if not kind of a tick down, but nothing that stands out as out of normal.
Yeah. Okay. That makes sense. And yeah, we'll stay tuned for, I'm sure, lots more good analysis to come from Analytic Index's side on once you get all the remaining search data and whatnot. Logan, on the brands that kind of exceeded expectations, so ones that were not in that sort of 50-ish% year-on-year growth or 2x trailing 7, those sorts of rough average benchmarks that we have for brands, like the ones that saw 2x what they did last year or 3x what they're typically doing a day and higher. I know we saw brands that did much more than that, but anything that stands out of this seemed to be a winning approach that should be baked into future tentpole events?
Just in my initial analysis of our data, our premium brands with higher price points, if they executed well with a nicely discounted Prime exclusive discount, those brands did really well and they were beating trends in relative to other brands. With premium products, I talked to just my people around me. They started adding to cart. They're waiting for it to go on sale. And with this new add to cart data Amazon gives us, we can even measure that and we see that. People start adding these products to cart before the event even begins. And with these premium products, we're offering 20% off of a $500 product. That's going to go a lot further than 20% off of a $40 product. So consumers are really conscious to that. At least looking at our clients at Acadia, premium brands with high AOVs that had really compelling discounting. And I'd be curious, once the actual data rolls in, to look at the abandoned carts and the add to carts before the event. I feel like if you're a premium brand, you need to tackle these tentpole events because consumers are waiting for a discount on really expensive products.
Yeah, it's something that I know we were looking at the data a little bit before this, that I guess shouldn't surprise me. But even though Amazon introduced a deal fee around Prime exclusive discounts, we're seeing more and more that brands are moving towards that merchandising option. Ones that you mentioned that are kind of outpacing other brands generally. Is it the case that they're primarily leveraging Prime exclusive discounts as well?
Definitely is what I saw in the data was the Prime exclusive discount. And Amazon, from their search pages, you're actually able to filter out Prime Big Deal apart from any other product. So to the end user, I feel like that's really powerful. And it's almost a non-negotiable to click that button. If you're on the Amazon app, if you're on the browser, you want to filter by what is a deal to you. Obviously, all of us who live and breathe Amazon, a coupon could also be considered a deal, but not to the end user.
Right. And I just feel like it's so clear Amazon's play here of like, yeah, if they give it a filter and search and browse, that takes a lot of engineering work, right? They're very invested on making sure that those deals rise to the top. Again, anecdotally, I had the few neighbors that somehow don't have Prime accounts in today's modern day and age were texting me things to buy on their behalf with our Prime account. So it's like the capture around the benefits of being a Prime user and aligning that with the merchandising makes absolute sense, right? It makes no sense for Amazon not to do it. And so, yeah, they're double dipping on both sides, right? Getting the fee from the merchant as well. So, yeah, it makes sense. Zach, any perspectives from your side in terms of types of merchandising or things you're seeing?
Yeah, we talked about kind of the purchasing patterns with household staples earlier, and then talking about those premium products as a bucket of items where shoppers are looking for a particular type of discount. The other place that we're seeing like a pretty meaningful change in terms of jumps and bestseller ranking is on novelty items. Some of that fits into, I think, pre-holidays, but that's where we see a lot of toys and games, some arts and crafts markers, some of these like items that are not a premium product, that aren't a household staple, but are just probably fall into the stocking stuffer kind of products.
Yeah. Is there a single, I don't know if you can divulge this, is there a single product that
we've got some examples that the biggest jump in BSR was the Mr. Sketch scented markers. And we've got a couple other arts and crafts items. And one of my data guys highlighted for me, this always shows up on our data. The Life Straw, that little, can drink from anywhere. That's a product that feels designed to be a stocking stuffer.
Yeah. Even like it's the sort of shape that goes nicely into a stocking.
Exactly. Yeah. That's an item that I think we always see a big lift on. People are not buying that in the middle of September, in the middle of August, but put it on 50% off, however discounted it was. And there's a big jump in purchasing there. That kind of novelty item. And we see a meaningful change in terms of, well, it shows up on the bestseller rankings once in a while too. Boop, this is the item of the day. And we talked about this with Prime Day 1 in a couple months ago, but Amazon as a space for private labeling is an interesting story that I am curious to continue watching. We definitely saw some of the Happy Belly, the Amazon Basics, some of those Amazon branded items also saw a big lift there. And I know they kind of play by a different set of rules in terms of
maybe no rules. Yeah,
maybe no rules. We see that a lot in the grocery space. I know that's probably a bit discouraging, as we've discussed today, the increased competition on page, the increased CPCs, to feel like, well, now you're also fighting against space and visibility from Amazon's in-house stuff.
Yeah, I feel like that is It's certainly a challenge, but if you've been following Amazon Temple events for any period of time and seen the electronics category where it's like essentially a Kindle showcase and then sometimes an electronics third-party product sneaks into the picture, unless you're Instapot or something where you're just dominating the category. If Amazon had presence in that category, Prime Day was going to be good for them. And that makes sense. We're seeing that play out now as more and more categories have sort of seized on that strategy.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay. Interesting. Zach, I mean, that's really insightful on sort of where we see this going, both in terms of new categories and new entrants into those categories. Logan, from your side, predictions for the futures. I'm curious both like, how do you leverage this demand to capitalize it as we head into Q4? And then just anything kind of prognostications for the future from the learnings from today?
Yeah, I think one thing just initially is leveraging brand tailored promotions. It's a newer tool Amazon's rolled out over the last few months, but Amazon continues to implement new audience types. So they actually are giving us more pools of customers that, or I guess potential customers that we used to not have. So not only can we target people who abandoned cart on Prime Day, we can target people who clicked or viewed, and there's like 6 different audiences. So definitely leveraging all those audiences to retarget and capture the sale from someone who was engaging on that event. As far as actually just analyzing our different accounts using the promo analyzer tool, AI, it's definitely a good plug there to see what other competitors did and relative to what we ran with our brands. Definitely looking at BSR to measure any changes there, looking at things on the keyword level, and then just getting ready for the next few events, which October 19th is the inventory cutoff for Black Friday, Cyber Monday. So that's like a week from now. So for our brands that did well, better start to ship some more product. I'd say those are a few things coming into the holidays.
Yep. Like the shout out of the promo analyst, a nice little part of using Analytic Index to figure out what the heck happened in a category at any given time. On that note, Zach, things either on the content side or analysis side that we could look forward to from Analytic Index here?
Yeah, I mean, for folks that use our tool, we have this really amazing ability to just kind of map out and see, okay, where did we see across these couple of days certain promotions happen? What brands were playing? What brands were kind of surprising outliers that you may or may not expect? And there oftentimes is a pretty impactful story of kind of how people were sponsoring or who was doing additional promotions or where there was additional discount percentages and those sort of data points. So we always have a lot of fun talking with our clients and diving into that a little bit more. I think one of the pieces that I'm curious to see is our data. We will continue to model our search visibility traffic, so our traffic within the context of Amazon search, which is just one portion of that. But I'm curious to watch how that model continues to look over the next couple weeks. Where did we see, how much of a spike did we really see within the context of Amazon search for this event? And then how does that dip and or grow towards the fall events, right? We obviously will expect a meaningful change around the couple weekends there in the end of November. But I'm curious about how this transitions. I know there is some hope for this event, the Big Deals Day, to kind of be the launching of shopping for the end of the year. So I'm curious to see how much that actually plays out within the data. Did we really see a spike? And is this the beginning of kind of the new shopping visibility area? But even with that, as we talked about earlier, there's a lot of other paths to traffic on Amazon, like whether that's offsite traffic or coming from Meta or someplace else. Search is just going to be one element of that. And I don't know that I have the best answer for really how congested search is. You may, like we've seen with a lot of elements of Amazon's promotional events, that we're sort of at the capacity of what Amazon's going to do. And so we're looking for those other valves and levers to continue to drive traffic.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like there's two sides to that. It's either a launch and a kickoff into Q4, or it's a pull forward of demand and we see a lull and then things pick up more dramatically. And so, that'll be interesting to get your perspective on as you start to see that data aggregate. Excellent. Well, I know we're at the end of a busy week for the both of you. I genuinely appreciate the time you guys came on, shared your perspective. Zach, keep us posted on if any TVs are headed your way in the near future. I can't wait to come over for a watch party. And again, thank you for the time. This was a ton of fun.
Thanks, y'all.
Thanks for having us, Jordan.
Thanks.